Hello, we appreciate you joining us this afternoon for Webinar Wednesday. Today we have Kristen Gray, Senior Product Manager at TLC, to discuss accessibility, WCAG, and how the Library Corporation has worked and to develop and improve the accessibility of our PAC, LS2 PAC for Library.Solution and Library.Solution for Schools. But before we begin, I have a little housekeeping. First, we are recording, so if you want to share this with your colleagues or come back and watch it again, the recording will be available on our website, tlcdelivers.com/webinars. But since you're joining us live, thank you. You'll have the opportunity, and we will be able to respond to your Q&As. You can just find it at the bottom of your screen. And all right, so Kristen, thank you so much for joining us for Webinar Wednesday.
All right, absolutely. Thank you, Ash, for having me. And as Ash said, my name is Kristen Gray. I'm the Senior Product Manager here at TLC. My specialties include user experience and borrower services. Today, I'll be drawing on both of those to discuss, as Ash mentioned, accessibility, WCAG, and how TLC is addressing these topics. So first, let's talk agenda. I'm going to go through a quick introduction of accessibility and web accessibility and how those will pertain to your library. I'll move into how to address web accessibility, what are the guidelines and standards, and which ones should we pay most attention to. Then I'll discuss what TLC's development approach is to meet web accessibility requirements for your borrowers and give a quick demo of how TLC is developing our online catalog to meet the required standards. Last, I'll provide some information and tools, some links to resources also where you can read and learn more. All right, let's get started. So accessibility isn't new. It's not a new concept or a new topic. In its simplest Google search definition, it is the quality of being easy to obtain or use, or the quality of being easily understood or appreciated. So accessibility in your library building isn't new. You've had to do that for a long time. Making sure your building, the rooms and areas inside it are accessible to those with physical disabilities, that's a given. Making sure your signage and your shelf labels are large and easily readable, that's a given. None of that is new. Web accessibility is also not new. However, it hasn't been enforced in quite the same way until now. So let's talk about web accessibility. And web accessibility takes the same concepts as accessibility and translates them to the web. It's as simple as that. The web includes all websites and software that is designed for the internet. It also refers to digital tools that are used, computers, iPads, e-readers, etc. So this really means that any tool, technology, or web presence that your library offers to the public is subject to web accessibility. One important distinction is that this doesn't just apply to the blind or the visually impaired or the handicapped or just those diagnosed with disabilities. Web accessibility focuses on users of all types. Impaired, disabled, elderly, anyone who may not be able to use technology, or even the technologically challenged. I always make jokes when I'm designing software or building, functionality to make sure that my mother-in-law can use it. And also my 19-year-old daughter who hates technology, make sure she can use it, as well as someone without vision, poor vision, and other diagnosed disabilities. So we keep a lot of personas. But that really is what web accessibility is all about, making the same presence easy, understandable, and usable to as many people. So compliance and how we make sure we're following all these accessibility guidelines and standards. So there's ADA and 508 and WCAG, oh my, right? Lions, tigers, and bears, oh my. So these are the three main sets of standards to talk about. And let's start with ADA. The American Disabilities Act prohibits discrimination on basis of disability and employment, state and local government, public accommodations, commercial facilities, transportation, and telecommunications. This includes your physical building, like we talked about, and with the addition with Title II and Title III, it also includes your online presence. Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act ensures that people with disabilities have access to information and data that's comparable to what people without disabilities have. In 1998, Congress amended the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 to require federal agencies to make their electronic and information technology, or their EIT, accessible to people with disabilities. You may be saying, I'm not a federal agency, this doesn't pertain to me, but if your library gets funding, federal funding like grants, then Section 508 does apply to you, even if you're not a federal agency. Now let's talk WCAG. That's the big buzzword, right? WCAG stands for Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. These standards explain how to make websites and applications accessible to people with disabilities. They set the international standard for web accessibility and are used worldwide. What it boils down to is that ADA and Section 508 tell us what not to do generally, and WCAG gives us an actual set of requirements to follow. So adhering to the WCAG, specifically the WCAG 2.1 AA standards or higher, will cover both ADA and Section 508 concerns. So let's talk about what TLC is doing in our development of the WCAG standards. In recent years, TLC partnered with the Office for Civil Rights with our LS2PAC development. As we've said, LS2PAC is our online catalog and Library Out Solution and Library Out Solution for schools. And it's the public-facing software. So the Office for Civil Rights, or the OCR, is part of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. They have been tasked with reviewing websites and software for compliance and handling any complaints or cases sent to them about compliance. Our work with OCR ensured that our path towards WCAG 2.1 AA compliance was the right one, and it would take care of their needs. With the adoption of WCAG 2.1 AA compliance, we have ensured that new development and our modern applications will have a focus on meeting or working towards web accessibility. Our first priority is with our online catalog, since this is a software, like I said, that's public-facing and used by your borrowers. In LS2PAC version 5.8, which is releasing soon, a strong theme in the development was WCAG development. We focused on color compliance and reflow, and I'll explain what those are in just a minute. To accomplish these goals, we decided to incorporate new technologies in our development and adopt material design. Material design is a system developed by Google, which initially was for Android, but now is used across various platforms like the web and iOS. It provides a unified visual language and set of guidelines, components, and tools to create a consistent, intuitive, and visually appealing digital experience. It's essentially a set of rules and resources for designers and developers to build user interfaces that are both functional and aesthetically pleasing. We also adopted a Material UI component library. This did two things. One, we were able to develop functionality a little more quickly, and that is because, two, this development uses pre-built and pre-tested WCAG compliant components. Another bonus to this is that the patterns of the controls and the functionality that we're putting in place in our software will become more standard, modern, and consistent. And those are great for optimum usability. That means that both my mother-in-law and my I hate technology daughter can use them. The Material UI library we use is also used by companies like Amazon, Spotify, Netflix. We continue to learn about, monitor, and develop towards state and local government legislations. Our customers become our development partners to help us gain and test the functionality, making sure legislation requirements are met. So there are several rulings or pending rulings, both nationwide, statewide, local, all of that discuss web accessibility and compliance requirements. All of the ones that we have tracked, heard of, been told about, that we're following, really come down to WCAG 2.1 AA. We are also in the process of making sure our VPAT is up to date. A VPAT is a voluntary product accessibility template, and it's often required by purchasing or other departments to ensure vendor software will meet the need of the requirements. We do have a current VPAT. We're just making some updates to it with this big release that we have with 5.8. So as I said, version 5.8, we focused a lot on development of WCAG compliance. And in this round, we improved reflow, which is how a website or app resizes to different resolutions or devices. And I'll show that. Color contrast, making sure, and we also worked on color contrast and making sure that color alone doesn't convey important information. Allowing libraries to add their own branding while checking for WCAG color contrast to make sure that there are guardrails in place to ensure compliance. So let's talk about reflow first. This is by far one of the most important aspects of web accessibility. WCAG has guidelines to make sure that no important information is contained within a horizontal scroll. And all features and functionality that is available on, it must be available in all resolutions. So whatever you can see in a desktop resolution must also be available on any other device like a mobile. These reflow guidelines also state that interfaces must scale down, like I said, to mobile devices, the full desktop resolutions. And another thing that may not be thought about is users must also be able to use a browser zoom all the way up to 200% without loss of functionality. So when you browse, you use your browser zoom all the way up to 200%, you still have to see everything on screen. And let me show that in our software. So this is LS2PAC in version 5.8. This is a desktop resolution. You'll see that everything, the homepage, the landing page with our carousels displays nicely. I search, I get search results, and as they populate, everything populates in. I get to, I can scroll down, see all of my results, and everything is on screen nicely as you would expect on a desktop. If I go into the title details, all of the information is here like I need. And let's see. Let's go to the Zoom first. I'm going to zoom my browser. So you can see as it's getting larger, the pieces on screen are enlarging like they're supposed to with Zoom functionality, but they're also, like snapping into place to make sure that everything, the reflow works, make sure that everything is still contained in the screen. There's no horizontal scroll, as you can see. I can't scroll left and right. I can still see everything I need to see in this one screen. I can scroll down and all of my content is viewable within this one screen up to 200%. I can go back to my search results. I can still see the full search results with my 200% zoom. And if I go to my landing page, everything still looks great zoomed. So let's take that back down. Let's look at it on a mobile device. All right, as this loads in my mobile simulator, you'll see that, again, I can see everything in the mobile device. Doesn't necessarily look great in portrait mode right now, but if I flip that to landscape, looks great. We'll continue to just use it in portrait mode. There are, as I'll talk about at the end, what's coming. We are making more improvements as we go. So if I do the search, all of my search results are on screen. There's no horizontal scrolling. Search bar fits, everything fits, nothing's off screen. I click into this first title. Again, everything is on screen as it should be. All of the functionality is available to me in all three of those types of resolutions. And then that means everything in between as well. Tablets, smaller zooms, all of those will also work. One of our biggest improvements in this development was also making sure that our online borrower registration form is fully mobile friendly. This type of registration is done often on a mobile device. And with the use of the MUI components in 5.8, the form is very intuitive and really easy to use. I wanted to show that today. On a mobile device, if I hit create account, this is our online borrower registration form. It's very customizable. This one's a pretty stripped down. In our online borrower registration, you can choose fields to display and not display. But as you can see, the field is nice and clean and easily filled out on a mobile device. And then you can get all the way down to it and register so much easier. If I close my simulator, you can see, it's taking just a minute to load. Sometimes my internet is slightly slow. I live out in the country. All right, well, as that loads, you'll be able to see that the OBR form is able to be used both on a desktop and then on a 200% Zoom as well. All right, here we go. I go to create account. My online borrower registration form looks great. And if I zoom, you can see that the entire form, again, very often when you zoom, fields don't resize. You have to scroll to get to different fields, and you can see that with our MUI components, that does not have. Okay. With color contrast, we darkened our default colors while keeping some of the vibrancy of the primary blue and secondary orange of our traditional LS2 pack colors. We also created the ability for libraries to brand LS2 pack to match their library or school branding because of the capability to set up different configurations per location or school. Each location can have its own look. In the branding functionality, we allow the use of primary and secondary colors, as well as custom logo, library name, and other settings. You may ask why we only allow two colors, why just primary and secondary and not a full customization of any color desired. That comes back to the material design. So in material design, primary and secondary colors are used to create a visually appealing and functional interface. The primary color is the most dominant color used for key components like at bars and buttons and links, while the secondary color acts more like an accent, often used for secondary buttons or floating buttons, selection controls, active states, or just informational purposes and other elements. These colors, along with their lighter and darker variants, help establish a clear visual hierarchy and brand identity, which is really going to help with usability. Having just those two colors are really going to help both my mother-in-law and my I hate technology daughter really understand that, you know, when I'm drawn to a blue button, that must mean it's an important button, right? So let's demo that. Again, LS2 pack, you can see that our primary blue is the main header. This orange color here is our secondary color. It's letting me know that new at the library is our active book carousel. But we are also using this line here because remember, you can't use just color for indication of important information. See if I go over to author spotlight that active state changes. And again, it's conveying information. If I do another search, you'll see that when that loads, the links, the buttons, a lot of those primary actions on screen, the things that we really want to draw the users to are in that primary color. The secondary color, again, is used more for like informational purposes to sort of draw the user's attention to where they're at, what, you know, other important information is on screen, but not necessarily the primary information or the primary things on screen. So let's talk about branding, how this can change with branding. I am now logged into my account. I am a borrower, and I'm also an admin at this library, so I get to see my my personal borrower account information, as well as the administrative pages within LS2PAC. So a normal borrower wouldn't see these bottom three here. So on this branding page, I get to see all of the logos that have been uploaded. I get to see any header settings I can change. I can customize my library name. In this logo that I have going right now, the library name is part of the logo. Just wanted to show that that was something that is possible if that's how your logo is created right now. If your name is part of it, we can work with both just a regular logo. Let's see if I change my logo. It changes down here in this really neat preview. So again, very flexible with logos and library names. We do require that there's alt text if there is no library name, because again, that is something for usability so that screen readers know what to use for the label. So here's the good stuff, primary and secondary colors. Let's say that Gray Public Library's colors are actually like a purple and a gray. So I'm going to change the primary color. And the thing that doesn't come through on the screen share is that when I click the color bar, there's a selection tool that comes up where you can, it's a normal color selection tool where I can put in the RGB or the hex code, or I can just use an eyedropper, or I can sort of slide through any colors that I like. So let's say that we use a really light lavender color. Now these are those guardrails that I was. So what this is telling me is that the color does not meet the TLC minimum 3:1 contrast ratio or the WCAG 2.1 AA standards. It certainly doesn't meet WCAG. But what we've done is we've got a line in the sand at 3:1 contrast ratio, and we have said this is absolutely the lowest that we cannot allow, or the website will just be actually unusable to anyone with any kind of visual impairments, low contrast, colorblind issues. It just with colors this light, there will be issues. So this creates an error, and you get the little error icon, you get the text letting you know that this doesn't meet, and you will not be able to save the form. So if I put it to a color that's just a little darker, this is just a little bit darker. Now I get a warning. So this warning, see, we've changed from an error icon to a warning icon. And we're not quite as in your face. It says warning. The color does not meet the 4.5:1 contrast ratio, which is required for WCAG 2.1 AA standards. Now you may be asking, why are we not enforcing the WCAG 2.1 AA standards this release, since we're so worried about WCAG compliance? That is because we also understand how libraries work. You all may not be in charge of your logo. You may not be able to change your logos quickly. If you're a school district, you have X number of logos and colors and brand colors that you have to work with. So what we've done is really made sure that you are above a specific ratio. If you don't hit within the 4.5:1 contrast ratio, we are allowing it at this time. There will be a point where we do kind of cut this off so that we are making sure everyone is WCAG compliant. But we're giving just a little bit of time so that you can start to get your colors in line for full compliance. But we are letting you know your colors are outside of compliance, so you may want to work. All right, let's put it at a darker color that does meet. I will choose a random gray. All right, zoom back out. As you can see, my preview updated. I'm going to apply branding. And you can see that now my Gray Public Library is now using purple and gray. All of this is a really cool feature that, all of the logos are now previewed behind what the primary color is there. If I go back to the landing page, you can see that the secondary colors have updated here. I go back and do search again. You can now see that the primary color purple has now become my links, my buttons, all of my primary actions, all of that has changed primary color, and my color has updated there as well. I also want to show, now I did talk about how each school or each library location, each branch can have their own configs in LS2PAC. And that's for other things besides just look and feel, but you can configure them differently. There's lots of settings that you can do in LS2PAC to customize per location. But I want to show Gray Middle School. This exists in the same instance, the same library.solution database. This is just a separate location at the same place. And they have completely separate branding. And these two exist within the same system. Okay, so what is next for TLC development? Well, we've already begun development on the release that is coming after 5.8 with WCAG compliance in mind. We've continued development for LS2PAC with a mobile-first usability and WCAG 2.1 compliance that is underway. This means that we're focusing on making sure the functionality is 100% usable and way more optimized for a mobile device. That's when I was, showing, and things aren't quite perfect. They're significantly better, and all the functionality is there. The reflow is compliant. But in this next round, we're going to make sure that things are just a little bit more laid out for mobile optimization. So you design mobile first, and then you make sure it expands to a desktop resolution, and then we also make sure that that browser zoom is also tested, and we keep that in mind, make sure that all reflows properly. We've also introduced these new technologies and MUI material UI components into LS2 cataloging. And that is our online cataloging module with new feature development that is coming in that next release. We plan to do the same in LS2 staff, which is our online circulation module in 2026. Not the next release, but hopefully the release after. We're iterative, and so we're looking at LS2 staff last there, not last, but next. Each release of library.solution and library.solution for schools will take us further in the journey and our commitment to full WCAG 2.1 compliance. So we at TLC really are committed to getting the entire suite compliant, and we are hugely on the way, as you can see. All right, back to the presentation. And as promised, if you would like to test your websites, your software, any of your other online presences, here are some tools that you can use. If you want to view something, again, website, something on different devices, there are several Chrome extensions that you can use to simulate that. The one that I just used today was called Chrome Viewport Resizer. It is just one of them. I can easily switch between devices. I can probably show that real quick. When I flip to it, I was already on an iPhone device. I can switch to a different iPhone device. This is a Google Pixel 7. You saw with just a click, I can flip into landscape mode. I can also look at it on different large desktop resolutions. So these kind of Chrome extensions are really helpful because there's no way we can all own every device. So again, that is just one of them. You can search and find something that may work better for you. Chrome Wave Evaluation Tool is another extension of Chrome that you can use, you can download. This is really good at finding color contrast issues, as well as issues for screen readers, because it will let you know when there are not any area labels on like your forms or any of the things, so that screen readers can read to the user, what it is that they're actively looking at. And it also shows some other accessibility issues. This one is slightly more advanced, so this one may be hard, but I do have another option. Chrome Developer Tools has a vision emulator that can show low contrast or color blindness simulations. So if you can open Chrome Developer Tools, either that keyboard shortcut, you can also do it in the browser. in the browser menu. It opens Chrome DevTools, and you scroll all the way down to the bottom. There's a couple little tabs at the bottom, and if you have the rendering tab, or if not, you click on those three little dots and you can get the rendering tab to show. That's what this screenshot is on slide, by the way. And then down there towards the bottom, there's an emulation, and you can emulate, you can look at what your, whatever your website, your software, whatever it looks like, emulating a vision, blurred vision, reduced contrast, and then some color blindness issues. However, if this is a little too advanced or you can't quite get this to work, or maybe you don't use Chrome, there are websites out there, free websites out there that can simulate color blindness. And what you can do is just take screenshots, and you can save those screenshot images, upload them to color blindness simulator websites, and you can simulate all kinds of color blindness. And so you can really see what your current state is for that. WebAIM Contrast Checker is really good to help finding colors that will pass the WCAG 4.5 to 1 color compliance standards. And I wanted to show that really quick, because this is really a powerful tool if you really want to get your colors up to snuff. And I'm going to work with I think this is, a gold color. So I have bad news for anyone that uses gold or yellow in your logos. It is incredibly hard to find a WCAG 2.1 color compliant or contrast compliant gold or yellow color. So I would really highly recommend trying to use something like this when you do that. And so I put in a gold yellowy color. If you look down here, it really is good at showing why this isn't compliant. That text really is kind of hard to read on that white background, especially when it's at its normal size. So what you can do is take this lightness slider and just start sliding it to the, a little darker. And once you get past your 4.5 to 1 ratio, you'll start to see that now all of a sudden you have pass. So now you're passing the WCAG AA standard. It doesn't pass the AAA standard, but that's for overachievers at this point. None of the legislations or nothing that we have found at this point requires the AAA. It only requires AA. So as long as you see that green pass and you're beyond the 4.5 to 1 ratio, you now have a color that will be compliant for WCAG color contrast. All right. And last, if you are looking for more information and specifics, or maybe some nighttime reading to help you fall asleep faster, here are the links for the guidance on WCAG website accessibility with ADA and the WCAG 2.1 guidelines. They are interesting reads. Will help you fall asleep faster. All right, that is what I have. And Ash, I will hand it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Kristen. That was really awesome. We do have one thing before we go on to the Q&A section. I'm just going to launch a little poll, see if anybody is interested in getting a little bit more information about our WCAG accessibility in our pack, in the future development or current development, or they just want to chat with us and, say hi. So I'll leave this up for a second, and then Kristen, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, please.
Sure.
We do have one Q&A that came in earlier that in it says, will slides be available after the webinar? I will make those available to you, and don't worry, I am not the fastest typer either, so I totally understand. We will make sure that those are available. All right. Thank you everyone so much for spending this afternoon with us. And if you have any additional questions, please let us know. If you could go to the next slide, Kristen.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of webinars available on our website, tlcdelivers.com/webinars. And if you'd like to register for the next one, or if you want to watch some of our previous recordings, please feel free to head over to tlcdelivers.com/webinars to check those out. Thanks for joining us today. And if you, oh, well, I already said that. Never mind. All right, everyone, have a great afternoon. And thank you again so much for coming. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.